The morning started like any other Tuesday at the royal estate. William sat in his office reviewing documents when his phone buzzed. It was Marcus, the head of security. His voice sounded tense, different from his usual calm demeanor. "It's urgent and sensitive." William felt his stomach tighten. Urgent calls from security were never good news. He told Marcus to come immediately. Within minutes, there was a knock on the heavy oak door. Marcus entered, holding a sealed envelope and looking uncomfortable. His face was pale, and he kept shifting his weight from one foot to another. "What is it, Marcus?" William asked, setting down his pen. Marcus closed the door carefully and approached the desk. He placed the envelope down but didn't let go of it immediately. "Sir, during a routine security check of all vehicles on the property this morning, we found something in the Duchess's car. Something that raises serious concerns." William's eyebrows drew together. Camilla's car? His stepmother had been living at the estate for years now. She had access to everything, went everywhere freely. What could possibly be concerning about her vehicle? "Show me," William said. Marcus opened the envelope and pulled out several photographs. The first image showed the interior of a luxury sedan, Camilla's personal car that she used for private outings. The second photo showed the glove compartment opened. Inside were stacks of papers. But it was the third photograph that made William's breath catch. There were bank statements, dozens of them, from an account he didn't recognize. The amounts were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of pounds moved in and out over the past 18 months. Marcus then showed him printed emails, correspondence between Camilla and someone named Ayer, discussing payments, arrangements, and something about keeping things quiet. "Where did you find these exactly?" William asked, his voice steady, but his hands starting to shake slightly. "Hidden in a locked box under the passenger seat, sir. We only found it because our new scanning equipment detected the metal container. When we opened the vehicle for inspection, one of our guards noticed the compartment seemed modified." William studied each document carefully. The bank account was in Camilla's name, but at a small private bank he'd never heard her mention. The transactions dated back almost 2 years. Large deposits came in regularly, then smaller amounts went out to various recipients. Some names he recognized as staff members. Others were completely unknown. "Has anyone else seen this?" William asked. "Only myself and Officer Patterson, the guard who discovered it. I instructed him to speak to no one. These documents are copies. The originals are secured in my office safe." William nodded slowly, his mind racing. This could be innocent. Perhaps she had a private account for charitable work she didn't want publicized. But the tone of the emails suggested something else entirely. One line kept jumping out at him. "As long as the family remains unaware, we can continue as planned." "I need time to think about this," William said finally. "Keep this completely confidential. Not a word to anyone, not even your most trusted officers. I'll handle this personally." Marcus looked relieved to hand over the burden. "Of course, sir. What would you like me to do with the originals?" "Bring them to me this evening. Use the private entrance. And Marcus, thank you for bringing this directly to me." After Marcus left, William sat alone with the photographs spread across his desk. His father had married Camilla years ago, despite the controversy, despite the public's mixed feelings. William had made peace with it, accepted her as part of the family, even defended her publicly when critics attacked. And now this. He thought about his children, about the family's reputation, about his father who was currently away on a diplomatic trip to Scotland. Should he wait until his father returned? Should he confront Camilla immediately? Every instinct told him to investigate quietly first, but anger was building inside him. If she was doing something that could harm the family, he needed to know now. William picked up his phone and sent a message to his private secretary. "Clear my schedule for tomorrow afternoon. Personal family matter." Then he sent another message, this one to Camilla. "I need to speak with you tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the East Library. It's important. Come alone." Dogged. William couldn't focus on anything. He kept returning to those bank statements, those emails. During dinner with his wife Catherine, he was distant, quiet. She asked if something was wrong, but he just smiled and said he had a lot on his mind with the upcoming charity event. He hated lying to her. but he needed to understand the situation before involving anyone else. That night, Marcus delivered the original documents as planned. William locked them in his personal safe, then spent 2 hours going through everything again. He made notes, wrote down questions, tried to find innocent explanations. But the more he read, the worse it looked. One email from Camilla to the mysterious AR was particularly troubling. The accounts have been very generous this quarter. Make sure the usual people receive their shares. William has been asking questions about household expenses, so we need to be more careful with the timing. William felt sick reading it. She was talking about hiding something from him. The household expenses she mentioned were his responsibility as he managed much of the estate's finances. Was she stealing from the family? Was she paying people off? For what? He barely slept that night. His mind created a dozen scenarios, each worse than the last. By morning, he was exhausted, but determined. He would get answers today, no matter how uncomfortable the conversation became. Catherine noticed his mood at breakfast. "William, you look terrible. Are you feeling ill?" "Just tired, darling. I have a difficult meeting this afternoon. Anything I should know about?" He wanted to tell her everything, but something held him back. "Not yet. Let me handle it first, then I'll explain everything." She looked worried, but didn't press him. That was one of the things he loved about Catherine. She trusted him to share when the time was right. The morning crawled by. William couldn't concentrate on any of his usual duties. His staff noticed his distraction, but were too polite to comment. At 1:30, he went to the East Library and arranged 2 chairs facing each other. He placed the envelope of documents on a side table. Within reach but not immediately visible, at precisely 2 o'clock, there was a soft knock. William's heart pounded as he called out. "Come in!" Camilla entered, wearing an elegant cream-colored dress and pearls. She smiled warmly, completely unsuspecting. "William, darling, how lovely. We so rarely get time alone to chat. How are the children?" Her casual friendliness made what he was about to do even harder. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please sit down, Camilla. We need to talk about something serious." Her smile faltered slightly as she registered his tone. "That sounds ominous. Is everything all right?" William waited until she sat down. Then he leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "This morning, security conducted a routine vehicle inspection. They found something in your car, something that raises very serious questions." The color drained from Camilla's face. It was subtle, but William saw it. A flash of panic crossed her eyes before she composed herself. "I'm not sure what you mean. What did they find?" "A locked box containing bank statements and correspondence. Statements showing hundreds of thousands of pounds moving through an account I've never heard you mention. Emails discussing payments, secrecy, and keeping things hidden from the family. From me specifically." Camilla's hands gripped the arms of her chair. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Then help me understand," William said, his voice harder now. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been moving large amounts of money secretly, possibly taking funds from the estate, and paying off people to keep quiet about it." "That's not what's happening." Camilla's voice rose, then she caught herself. "William, please. This is complicated. I'm giving you a chance to explain before I take this to my father, before I involve lawyers and accountants. Talk to me, Camilla. What is going on?" The room fell silent. Camilla looked at her hands, then at the window, anywhere but at William's face. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I was trying to protect the family." "Protect us from what?" "By secretly moving money around? By keeping accounts hidden? You don't understand the pressures, the constant demands. People are always asking for money, threatening to go to the press with stories, real or invented. I was handling it quietly, keeping the family out of scandal." William stood up, too agitated to sit still. "By paying blackmailers? That's your explanation? And you didn't think to tell me? Tell my father? Tell anyone? You just decided to handle it yourself with hidden bank accounts?" "I was trying to spare everyone the stress and publicity." "Or you were stealing from us and got caught," William shot back. The accusation hung in the air between them. Camilla's face hardened. "How dare you?" After everything I've endured for this family, you accuse me of theft. Then show me I'm wrong, William said, reaching for the envelope. Explain every transaction, every name, every payment. Prove to me this is what you say it is. Camilla stood up, her composure cracking completely now. I won't be interrogated like a criminal in my own home. This isn't your home. This is the family's estate. And if you're using family resources for secret purposes, I have every right to ask questions. So sit down and start explaining, or I'm calling my father right now. They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to cut. William could see Camilla calculating, deciding how much to reveal, what she could still hide. It made him even angrier because it confirmed she was still being dishonest. Finally, Camilla sat back down slowly. Fine, you want the truth? I'll tell you everything. William remained standing, his arms crossed, waiting. Camilla smoothed her dress nervously, a gesture he'd never seen from her before. She was always so composed, so in control. Seeing her rattled only confirmed his suspicions that something was very wrong. About 3 years ago, Camilla began, her voice quiet, a journalist approached me. He claimed to have information about some indiscretions from my past. Things that happened long before I married your father, but things that would still cause a scandal if they became public. William felt his jaw tighten. What kind of indiscretions? Camilla looked down at her hands. Financial matters. Some business dealings that weren't entirely proper. Nothing illegal, but certainly embarrassing. He wanted money to keep quiet. A lot of money, and you paid him. It wasn't a question. What choice did I have? Can you imagine the headlines? The damage it would do to your father, to the family's reputation. I thought if I paid him once, it would end there. William sat down again, his anger mixing with frustration. But it didn't end there. It never does with blackmailers, no, Camilla admitted. He came back 6 months later. Then again, each time asking for more, and then others started coming forward. People claiming they had information, photographs, documents. Some of it was real, some was fabricated, but all of it would have been damaging if it went public. So you set up a secret bank account to pay them all off. I set it up to manage the situation discreetly. The money came from my personal investments initially. Income from properties I owned before the marriage, inheritance from my family. I never took a penny from the royal estate. William pulled out one of the bank statements. This shows deposits of £50,000 every month for the past year. Where was that coming from, if not from estate funds? Camilla hesitated, and William knew she was about to lie or at least tell a partial truth. I sold some properties, quietly. I didn't want your father to know because he would have insisted on helping, and I didn't want him burdened with my problems. My father is your husband. Your problems are his problems. That's how marriage works. Easy for you to say, Camilla snapped, some of her usual fire returning. You married Catherine, who is practically perfect from day one. I came into this family with baggage, with a history that people love to throw in my face. I've spent years trying to prove I belong here, trying to show I'm worthy of your father's love. The last thing I wanted was to give people more ammunition against me. William wanted to feel sympathy, but the deception was too fresh, too raw. So instead, you handled it by creating secret accounts, paying off criminals, and keeping everything hidden. Do you understand how this looks? Even if everything you're saying is true, the secrecy makes it appear like you're the one doing something wrong. It's protecting everyone. You were protecting yourself, William corrected sharply. If you'd come to me, to my father, to the family lawyers, we could have handled this properly. We could have gone to the authorities, had these blackmailers arrested, and have it all come out in court. Have every sordid detail splashed across newspapers worldwide. I chose the quieter path. William stood and walked to the window, looking out at the manicured gardens. His mind was spinning. Part of him understood her reasoning. The family had dealt with scandals before, knew how vicious the press could be. But the way she'd handled it, the lies by omission, the hidden accounts, it all felt wrong. Who is AR? He asked without turning around. Silence stretched behind him. When Camilla didn't answer, William turned to face her. The emails mentioned AR repeatedly. Who is that? A financial advisor. Someone discreet who helped me manage the payments and accounts. I want a name. A full name and contact information. Why? So you can drag them into this too? Because I need to verify your story, William said bluntly. You're asking me to believe you've secretly paid out hundreds of thousands of pounds to blackmailers over 3 years? All to protect the family without telling anyone. That's a lot to take on faith, especially when I just discovered you've been lying to everyone. Camilla flinched at the word lying, but she couldn't deny it. His name is Adrian Richardson. He's a private wealth manager in London. He's handled sensitive matters for several high-profile families. William pulled out his phone and made a note. I'll be speaking with him. I'll also be having our accountants review all of your financial records, both personal and any connected to the estate. You can't do that without my permission. Actually, I can. Estate security matters fall under my purview. If there's any question of fraud or misuse of family resources, I have every right and responsibility to investigate thoroughly. Camilla stood up abruptly. This is outrageous. I've explained the situation. I've told you the truth. What more do you want? I want proof. I want names of every person you've paid. I want to see correspondence with these supposed blackmailers. I want to verify that every pound came from your personal funds and not from accounts connected to this family. You want to humiliate me, you mean? You want to expose every mistake I've ever made. William moved closer to her, his voice dropping but becoming more intense. What I want is to know whether my father's wife has been stealing from us, whether she's been compromised by criminals, whether there's any ongoing threat to this family. Your embarrassment is not my primary concern right now. They stood face to face, neither backing down. Finally, Camilla spoke, her voice cold. I'll provide you with the information, but I want your word that you'll be discreet. If you humiliate me publicly, if you turn this into a spectacle, I'll never forgive you. If your story checks out, there won't be any public spectacle. But if I find out you've been lying, if there's more to this than blackmail payments, then discretion becomes impossible. Do you understand? Camilla nodded stiffly. When do you want the information? Tomorrow morning? Everything. And I want you to arrange a meeting with Adrian Richardson for tomorrow afternoon. I'll be speaking with him personally. He won't appreciate being dragged into this. I don't care what he appreciates. This is happening. Camilla walked toward the door, but paused with her hand on the handle. William, regardless of what you think of me right now, I really was trying to protect the family. I know I went about it the wrong way, but my intentions were good. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, William replied. And right now, I'm more concerned with facts than intentions. After she left, William slumped back in his chair, exhausted. The conversation had been even more difficult than he'd anticipated. Part of him wanted to believe her story about blackmailers and protection, but something didn't add up. The amounts were too large, too regular. And the emails he'd read had a tone that suggested more than just payments to keep scandalous information quiet. He pulled out his phone and called his personal lawyer. James Pemberton. James had handled sensitive family matters for years and could be trusted completely. James, I need you to clear your schedule for the next few days. We have a situation that requires immediate and discreet attention. Course. What kind of situation? Financial irregularities? Possible blackmail? Definitely deception. I need you to review some documents and help me conduct a thorough investigation. Can you come to the estate tonight? I'll be there by 8. Should I bring anyone else? Not yet. Let's assess the situation first. Then we'll decide if we need accountants or other specialists. After ending the call, William locked the documents back in his safe and tried to return to his normal duties, but concentration was impossible. His mind kept returning to Camilla's face when he'd confronted her. The way she'd admitted to the payments so readily once caught? Was that because she was telling the truth, or because she'd already prepared a cover story? Catherine found him in his office an hour later. She closed the door and sat down across from him. All right, what's going on? And don't tell me it's nothing because I can see how stressed you are. William looked at his wife, her concerned face, her steady presence. He'd kept her out of this for less than a day, and it was already eating at him. He told her everything, about the documents, the confrontation, Camilla's explanation. Catherine listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious as the story unfolded. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Do you believe her?" she finally asked. "I don't know. Part of her story makes sense. We all know how ruthless the press can be. How many people would love to see this family embarrassed? But the amounts, Catherine. Hundreds of thousands of pounds. That's not just paying off a journalist or two. Could she be involved in something else? Something she's not telling you? That's what worries me. What if the blackmail story is just the surface? What if there's something deeper?" Catherine reached across the desk and took his hand. "You're doing the right thing by investigating. But William, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this could get very ugly. If Camilla has been involved in something criminal, it will affect your father deeply." "I know. That's the part that keeps me up at night. Dad married her against so much opposition. He stood by her when public opinion was brutal. If she's betrayed his trust, betrayed this family, it will destroy him. Then we make sure we have all the facts before we tell him anything. No speculation, no assumptions, just hard evidence, whatever that evidence reveals." William squeezed her hand gratefully. "James is coming tonight to review the documents. I've also demanded that Camilla provide more information tomorrow and arrange a meeting with this financial advisor she mentioned. Do you want me there when you meet with the advisor? Would you? Of course, you shouldn't have to handle this alone." That evening, James Pemberton arrived promptly at 8. They met in William's private study, where William laid out all the documents. James, a silver-haired man in his 60s with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, examined everything methodically. "This is concerning," he said after an hour of review. "The pattern of payments is too regular to be sporadic blackmail attempts. It looks more like an ongoing arrangement, possibly multiple arrangements running simultaneously." "That's what I thought," William said. "Camilla claims she was paying off various blackmailers, but these amounts seem structured, almost like business transactions." "In this correspondence with Adrian Richardson," James continued, pointing to several emails, "the language is very careful, very coded. Phrases like the usual arrangements and maintain discretion as discussed suggest an established system, not crisis management. So you don't think she's telling the whole truth?" "I think she's telling you part of the truth, perhaps the most innocent part. But there's more here, I'm certain of it." Catherine, who had been reading over James's shoulder, pointed to one particular email. "Look at this one from 8 months ago." Camilla wrote, "The new arrangements are more profitable than anticipated. Increase the monthly distributions accordingly." What does that sound like to you? William leaned in to read it again. His stomach dropped. "It sounds like income. Like she's receiving money from somewhere and distributing it to others." "Exactly," James said grimly. "This doesn't read like someone being blackmailed. This reads like someone running some kind of financial operation." The three of them sat in heavy silence, the implications sinking in. If Camilla wasn't just a victim of blackmail, but was actively involved in something questionable, possibly illegal, the consequences would be devastating. "We need more information before we jump to conclusions," James finally said. "Tomorrow's meeting with this Richardson fellow will be crucial. I'll prepare a list of questions, things we need to understand about these accounts and transactions." William nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling heavier on his shoulders. Tomorrow would bring answers, but he had a sinking feeling that those answers would only lead to more difficult questions. Morning came too quickly for William. He barely slept, his mind replaying every conversation, every document, every suspicious detail. By 7 o'clock, he was already dressed and in his office, drinking strong coffee and reviewing his notes for the day ahead. At 9, there was a knock on his door. His secretary entered carrying a large manila envelope. "This was delivered for you an hour ago, sir? From the Duchess. She said it contained the information you requested." William took the envelope, noting its weight. "Thank you. Hold all my calls this morning unless it's urgent." Once alone, he opened the envelope and spread the contents across his desk. Camilla had provided bank statements going back 3 years, copies of emails and correspondence, names and amounts of payments, and a typed summary of her explanation for each major transaction. At first glance, it appeared thorough. But William had learned to look deeper. He started with the list of names she claimed were blackmailers. There were 7 individuals listed, each with dates and amounts paid. The first name caught his attention immediately: Marcus Holloway. William pulled out his phone and searched the name. Marcus Holloway was a former royal correspondent for a major newspaper, someone who had covered the family extensively. That part made sense for a potential blackmailer. But when William searched for recent activity, he found that Holloway had died 2 years ago. Yet according to Camilla's documents, she'd made payments to him as recently as 6 months ago. William felt cold anger spreading through his chest. She was still lying. He checked the second name: Patricia Swanson. Another journalist, this one retired and living in Spain. A quick online search showed she'd written a memoir last year with a whole chapter about integrity in journalism and refusing to engage in blackmail or checkbook journalism. Would such a person really be extorting Camilla? He went through each name methodically. Some he couldn't verify immediately, but 3 of the 7 raised immediate red flags. Either they were dead demonstrably in other countries during the payment periods, or their public personas completely contradicted the idea that they'd be involved in blackmail. There was a knock at the door, and James Pemberton entered. William had asked him to come early to review Camilla's materials before the afternoon meeting with Adrian Richardson. She sent over the information, William said, gesturing to the documents covering his desk, and she's already been caught in lies. He showed James what he'd discovered about the names. James's expression grew darker with each revelation. She's fabricating evidence, James said quietly. The question is whether she's doing it to cover up the real blackmailers. Identities, or because there were never any blackmailers at all, or she's involved in something she can't tell us about. William added, something that requires regular payments to specific people, and she needed a cover story. We need to confront her with these discrepancies before we meet Richardson. See how she reacts when caught in a direct lie? William checked his watch. It was nearly 10. I'll call her now. Ask her to come immediately. He reached for his phone, but before he could dial, his secretary buzzed through on the intercom. Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a gentleman here who insists on speaking with you urgently. He says it concerns the Duchess, and it's a matter of security. William and James exchanged glances. Send him in. A moment later, a man in his 40s entered. He wore an expensive suit and carried a leather briefcase. His face was pale, and he looked frightened. Your Highness, my name is Adrian Richardson. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but when the Duchess contacted me last night about your investigation, I knew I needed to speak with you immediately. Before our scheduled meeting, William stood slowly. Mr. Richardson, please. Sit down. This is James Pemberton, my legal counsel. Richardson sat on the edge of his chair, clutching his briefcase. I want to be clear from the start. I never wanted to be involved in any of this. When the Duchess first approached me 3 years ago, she presented it as legitimate asset management. It wasn't until later that I realized the true nature of what I was helping her do. And what exactly was that? James asked sharply. Richardson opened his briefcase with shaking hands and pulled out a thick folder. The Duchess has been running what amounts to an influence peddling operation. She's been accepting payments from individuals and companies seeking access to the royal family, favorable consideration for honors and appointments, and assistance with business matters that require royal connections. William felt the room spin slightly. This was far worse than blackmail. Explain? Richardson laid out documents as he spoke. It started small. Someone would approach her, usually through intermediaries, asking if she could arrange a meeting with a senior royal family member or help them get invited to an official event. She'd charge a fee, sometimes £50,000, sometimes more. The money would go into the private account I helped her establish. And you didn't think this was wrong? William's voice was ice. I did, Your Highness, which is why I'm here. At first, she convinced me it was just helping friends, that the fees were donations to her private charities. But over time, the requests became more explicit. People wanted recommendations for knighthoods, help with government contracts, introductions to ministers. And the Duchess was providing these services for a price. James leaned forward. Do you have proof of these arrangements? Everything, Richardson said, patting his folder. I kept copies of all correspondence, all wire transfers, all meeting notes. When I realized what I'd been helping her do, I started documenting everything in case it came to light. I never wanted to be complicit in corruption, yet you continued to help her, William said coldly. Richardson's face reddened. She threatened me. Said if I walked away, she'd claim I'd embezzled from her accounts, that I'd fabricated everything. She said no one would believe a financial advisor over a duchess. I was trapped. William took the folder and began reading. The evidence was damning. Email after email showed Camilla agreeing to arrange meetings, make introductions, or speak favorably about individuals to people in positions of power. And every arrangement came with a price tag. One email from 18 months ago showed a businessman agreeing to pay £100,000 for Camilla to arrange a private dinner with a cabinet minister to discuss a proposed development project. Another showed a woman paying £75,000 for Camilla's support in her campaign for a seat in the House of Lords. How much money are we talking about in total? James asked. Over the 3-year period, approximately £2.4 million passed through the accounts I managed for her, Richardson said. And I believe there were other accounts, other arrangements I wasn't aware of.
8.
William felt sick. His stepmother, the woman his father loved, had been selling access to the royal family like she was running a criminal enterprise. Where did the money go? The bank statements show large sums going out as well. She kept about 40% for herself. The rest went to various people. Some were legitimate expenses, but many were what she called necessary payments. I believe she was paying off people who knew what she was doing, ensuring their silence. So the blackmail story was partly true, James observed, just not in the way she presented it. She wasn't being blackmailed about her past. She was paying people to keep quiet about her current activities. Richardson nodded. Exactly. And it was getting worse. Recently, she started talking about expanding the operation, bringing in more intermediaries, offering even more exclusive services. That's when I knew I had to get out. William stood and walked to the window, trying to process everything. His father would be devastated. The family's reputation would be shattered if this became public, and legally, Camilla could face serious charges. Mr. Richardson, William said, without turning around, you've helped commit fraud and corruption. You understand you could face criminal charges? I do, Your Highness. That's why I'm here. I want to cooperate fully. I want to provide testimony, evidence, whatever you need. I'm hoping that my cooperation will be taken into account. That will be up to the authorities, James said. But first, we need to secure all the evidence and understand the full scope of what's been happening. William finally turned back to face them. Does my father know any of this? No, Richardson said firmly. The Duchess was adamant that he remain unaware. She told me she was protecting him, that this was her way of maintaining her independence and proving her value to the family. By selling us out, William said bitterly, by turning the family's trust and position into a commodity. His phone buzzed. A text from Camilla. Adrian Richardson has betrayed me. Whatever he tells you is lies designed to save himself. I'm the victim here, not the criminal. William showed the text to James, who shook his head. She knows he's here. She's already preparing her defense. We need to move quickly, William said. James, I want you to secure all of Mr. Richardson's evidence. Make copies. Store them safely. Then contact the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Fraud Unit. This is beyond family discipline now. This is criminal activity. What about the Duchess? James asked. I'll handle Camilla. But first, I need to call my father. He needs to know before this goes any further. Richardson stood up. Your Highness, there's one more thing. The Duchess mentioned several times that she had other insurance policies, other people who owed her favors. She implied that if she was ever exposed, she could bring down others with her. I don't know if she was bluffing, but you should be prepared for her to fight back. William nodded grimly. Thank you for coming forward, Mr. Richardson, despite your involvement. You've done the right thing now. After Richardson left with James to secure the evidence, William sat alone in his office, staring at his phone. He needed to call his father, but the conversation would destroy him. His father had defended Camilla against all criticism, had insisted she was misunderstood, had built his late-life happiness around their relationship. And now William had to tell him that his wife was a criminal who'd been exploiting the family for years. He picked up the phone and dialed. His father answered on the third ring, his voice cheerful. "William, how lovely to hear from you. I was just thinking about calling to check on the children. Dad, I need you to come home immediately. We have a serious family emergency." The cheerfulness vanished from his father's voice. "What's wrong? Is someone hurt?" "No one's hurt, but this can't be discussed over the phone. Can you return today?" "I'm scheduled to meet with the First Minister this afternoon. Cancel it. This is urgent and private. Trust me, Dad. You need to come home now." There was a long pause. "This is about Camilla, isn't it?" William closed his eyes. "Yes, I'll be on the first helicopter out. I should be there by early afternoon." After hanging up, William sat in silence, feeling the weight of what was coming. Within hours, his father would know the truth. The family would be thrown into crisis, and Camilla would face the consequences of her actions. But first, he had one more conversation to have. He texted Camilla, "My office. 1 hour. Come alone, and come prepared to tell the truth this time." Her response came immediately. "You're making a terrible mistake. You don't understand what you're dealing with." William stared at the message. It sounded like a threat. Was she really prepared to burn everything down rather than face justice? He forwarded the text to James with a note, "Document everything. She's getting desperate." The next hour passed in tense preparation. William reviewed all the evidence again, making notes of specific questions and confrontations. Catherine joined him, having heard from James what Richardson had revealed. "This is going to get ugly," she said quietly. "It already is ugly. Now it's just going to become public. Are you sure you want to do this before your father gets here? Maybe wait, so you're not alone when you confront her?" William shook his head. "I want to hear what she says when she doesn't know we've talked to Richardson yet. I want to see if she'll continue lying, or if she'll finally admit the truth." At the appointed time, Camilla arrived. She looked different from yesterday, harder somehow, her face set in determined lines. She sat down without being asked and placed her purse on her lap like a shield. "Before you start," she said, "I want you to understand something. Everything I've done for this family. You may not see it that way, but it's the truth." "Adrian Richardson is here," William said flatly, watching her face. "He's provided everything. Bank records, emails, details of every corrupt arrangement you've made over the past 3 years. So please, spare me the denials and justifications." Camilla's face went white, then red. For a moment, William thought she might faint. But then her expression hardened into something he'd never seen from her before, cold rage mixed with calculation. "That coward," she hissed. "I gave him everything. Made him wealthy beyond his dreams. And he betrays me the moment there's pressure." "He betrayed you by finally doing the right thing," William corrected. "Just like you betrayed this family by selling access to us, by turning our trust into a business opportunity, by lying to everyone who cared about you." Camilla stood up abruptly. "You have no idea what it's like. To be constantly judged, constantly criticized, never good enough. I found a way to prove my worth, to show that I could be valuable to this family beyond just being your father's wife. By committing crimes? By corrupting the very institution you married into? By being practical?" She shouted. People were going to seek access one way or another. At least this way, it was controlled, managed, and the money I made ensured I'd never be dependent on family charity again. William stared at her, genuinely shocked by her lack of remorse. "You actually believe you did nothing wrong?" "I did what I had to do to survive in a world that wanted me to fail." "No, you did what you wanted to do because you chose greed over integrity, and now you're going to face the consequences." Camilla's eyes narrowed dangerously. She sat back down, but this time her posture was aggressive, leaning forward like a cobra ready to strike. "Consequences? You want to talk about consequences, William? Let's talk about what happens if you pursue this. William felt a chill run down his spine. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You think I did all this alone, in a vacuum? You think I'm the only one who's been pragmatic about using position for benefit? I have records, William. Insurance policies. Details about arrangements others in this family have made that wouldn't look good under scrutiny. You're lying, am I? Ask your uncle about his art collection and how certain pieces were acquired. Ask about the investment opportunities certain family members were given access to before they were public knowledge. Ask about the consulting fees some relatives receive from companies that coincidentally win royal warrants shortly after. William's hands gripped the arms of his chair. Even if any of that were true, it doesn't excuse what you've done, and it won't protect you. Maybe not, but it will make your crusade for justice very expensive for everyone. Do you really want to open that door? Do you want every financial dealing of every family member for the past decade examined publicly? If that's what it takes to clean house, yes. Camilla laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're so naive. You think you're protecting the family by exposing me? You'll destroy us all. The press will feast on this for years. Every questionable decision, every minor indiscretion, every human mistake will be magnified and twisted. Your children will grow up with this cloud over them. Children will grow up knowing that wrong actions have consequences, no matter who you are. That's a better lesson than teaching them corruption is acceptable if you don't get caught. Catherine, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Camilla, threatening William won't change what you've done. It will only make things worse for you. Camilla turned to her. Oh, Catherine. Perfect Catherine. Do you really think you understand how this world works? You were born into the right family, married into an even better position. You've never had to fight for anything. Some of us weren't so lucky. I understand that integrity matters more than position, Catherine replied calmly. And I understand that you've broken the law and betrayed the people who welcomed you into this family. Welcomed me? Is that what you call it? The years of cold shoulders, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room, the constant comparisons to William's mother. I was tolerated, not welcomed. So your response was to prove them right? William asked. To become exactly the kind of person they feared you were? The words hit their mark. Camilla flinched. For just a moment, her defensive anger cracked, and William saw something else underneath. Shame, maybe even regret. But then her mask snapped back into place. I want a lawyer, she said flatly. You'll need several, William replied, because I've already contacted the Metropolitan Police Fraud Unit. They'll want to speak with you today? You called the police? Without even talking to your father first? I called them because what you've done is criminal. My father's feelings, while important, don't change the facts. You've accepted bribes, sold access to government officials, potentially violated multiple laws about corruption and influence peddling. Your father will never forgive you for this. William felt that statement like a physical blow, but he kept his voice steady. That's his choice to make. But I won't protect a criminal just to spare his feelings or maintain a comfortable lie. He deserves to know the truth. Truth, Camilla said bitterly. The truth is that I loved your father. I still love him. Everything got so complicated, so out of control. But it started because I wanted to feel valuable, to contribute something meaningful. You could have contributed through legitimate charity work, public service, any of the normal channels available to someone in your position. Instead, you chose crime. There was a knock at the door. James entered, his expression serious. William, the authorities are here, and your father has just arrived. His helicopter landed 5 minutes ago. William's stomach tightened. This was it, the moment when everything would come crashing down. Take the officers to the drawing room. I'll speak with them shortly, and ask my father to join us here first. After James left, William turned back to Camilla. You have a choice now. You can continue to deny and threaten, or you can accept responsibility and cooperate. That cooperation might make a difference in how this ends for you. I won't go to prison, Camilla said, her voice shaking now. I can't. The humiliation, the scandal. You should have thought about that before you started taking bribes, Catherine said quietly. The door opened again, and William's father entered. He looked confused and worried, his eyes moving from William to Catherine to Camilla, trying to read the situation. "What's going on?" "William, you said it was an emergency." "Camilla, why do you look so upset?" William stood. "Dad, please sit down. There's something you need to know." "I'd rather stand." "Just tell me what's happened." William took a deep breath. This was going to hurt his father more than anything he'd ever had to say. Camilla has been involved in criminal activity for the past 3 years. She's been accepting money from people in exchange for providing them access to the family, influence over appointments and honors, and assistance with government matters. We have substantial evidence, including testimony from her financial manager and documentation of transactions totaling over £2 million. His father's face went through several expressions in quick succession: disbelief, confusion, anger, and finally settling into a kind of stunned numbness. He looked at Camilla. "Tell me this isn't true." Camilla stood and went to him, reaching for his hands, but he stepped back. "Darling, please listen. It's not what it sounds like." "I can explain everything." "And explain," he said, his voice hollow. "I was trying to help people. Yes, they paid fees, but I was providing a service, making introductions, giving advice. It's not different from what consultants do every day." "Consultants don't trade on royal access and government influence," William said sharply. "What you did is corruption, plain and simple." His father sank into a chair, suddenly looking much older than his years. "How long have you known about this, William?" "The security team found evidence in her car 2 days ago. I've been investigating since then. And you didn't think to tell me immediately?" "I wanted to verify the facts before involving you. I hoped there might be an innocent explanation, but there isn't one," his father said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. He looked at Camilla again. "How could you? How could you use my family, my name, for your own profit?" "I never meant for it to go this far," Camilla said, tears starting to fall. "It started so small, just helping friends. But then people kept coming, offering more and more money, and I thought, why not? Why shouldn't I benefit from this position that's made my life so difficult? Because it's wrong?" His father shouted, standing up suddenly. "Because we have a responsibility that comes with our position. Because people are supposed to trust us." "Trust us?" Camilla laughed through her tears. "They hate us. They mock us in the press every day. Why should we live like saints for people who despise us? Because it's right. Because it's our duty. Because it's who we're supposed to be." William watched his father, seeing him truly angry with Camilla for perhaps the first time. It was painful to witness, but also necessary. "There's more, Dad," William said gently. "The Metropolitan Police are here. They need to speak with Camilla formally. There will likely be charges." His father closed his eyes. "Of course there will be. She's committed crimes. She has to face justice like anyone else would." He opened his eyes and looked at Camilla. "I think you should leave now. Go with the officers, get a lawyer, but don't stay here." "I can't look at you right now." "Please," Camilla begged. "Please, don't do this. I'm still your wife. We can work through this together." "You stopped being my wife the moment you decided to betray everything I believe in," he said quietly. "I defended you against everyone. I told them they were wrong about you, that you were good and kind and worthy. I gave you my love, my trust, my family's acceptance, and you used it all to enrich yourself. I love you," Camilla sobbed. "If this is what your love looks like, I want no part of it." William stepped forward. "I'll escort you to meet with the officers. James has already contacted a criminal defense attorney on your behalf. Whatever happens next, you'll have proper legal representation." Camilla wiped her eyes, her makeup smearing. For a moment, she looked lost, frightened, nothing like the composed Duchess she usually presented. Then her expression hardened again. "This isn't over. I meant what I said about having insurance. If I'm going down, others will fall with me." "Then let them fall," William's father said. "If there's more corruption, more lies, let it all come out. Let us finally clean house properly, no matter the cost." William led Camilla out of the office and down to the drawing room where 2 plainclothes detectives waited. They stood as he entered, their faces professionally neutral. "Your Highness," the senior officer said. I'm Detective Chief Inspector Sarah Morrison. This is Detective Sergeant James Chen. We understand there are serious allegations that need to be investigated. This is the Duchess, William said. She's agreed to speak with you, though I believe she'll want her lawyer present. That's her right, Morrison said. Your Highness, we'll need to speak with you as well, to get your statement about how this investigation began. Of course, I have substantial documentation to provide as well. My legal counsel, James Pemberton, has been organizing everything.
Ow.
Morrison nodded. We'll also need to speak with Mr. Adrian Richardson and examine all financial records related to the accounts in question. Everything will be made available to you, William assured her. As the detectives began their preliminary conversation with Camilla, William stepped out into the hallway. He felt exhausted, drained by the emotional confrontations and the weight of what was happening. Catherine found him there, leaning against the wall with his eyes closed. "How are you holding up?" she asked softly. "I'm not sure yet. Ask me in a few days." Your father, devastated, angry, betrayed. All the things you'd expect. This was the right thing to do, William, no matter how much it hurts. I know, but knowing something is right doesn't make it easier. They stood together in silence for a moment, then William pushed himself off the wall. I need to go back to Dad. He shouldn't be alone right now. He found his father still in the office, sitting in the same chair, staring at nothing. William sat down beside him and waited. Finally, his father spoke. I really loved her, you know. Despite everything, despite all the complications and criticism, I truly loved her. I know, Dad. How did I miss this? How did I not see what she was doing? Because you trusted her. Because love can make us blind to things we don't want to see. I feel like such a fool. William reached over and gripped his father's shoulder. You're not a fool. You're a man who loved his wife and believed the best of her. There's no shame in that. There's shame in being so naive. In putting my personal happiness ahead of my duty to ensure the integrity of this family, you couldn't have known. She hid it well, and she had help. Richardson said she was very careful, very clever about compartmentalizing her activities. His father was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? The police will investigate fully. They'll interview everyone involved, examine all the financial records, build a case. If there's enough evidence, they'll charge her. Then it goes through the court system. It'll be a media nightmare. Yes, we'll need to prepare a statement, coordinate with our press office, possibly hold a press conference. But first, we focus on cooperating with the investigation and ensuring justice is served. In Camilla, where will she go? That's up to her and her lawyers. She can't stay here, obviously. Perhaps she has family she can stay with. She'll hate that. Having to go to them for help after years of being too proud to maintain close contact. Dad, you can't worry about her comfort right now. She made her choices. She has to live with the consequences. His father nodded slowly. You're right. I know you're right. It's just hard to turn off caring for someone, even when they've hurt you so deeply. That's because you're a good person. Don't let her actions change that about you. They sat together for another hour, father and son. As the police continued their work down the hall, and the family's world fundamentally shifted around them, 3 days had passed since the confrontation. The estate felt different now, quieter somehow, as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for what would come next. William had barely slept, spending his nights reviewing documents with lawyers and preparing statements for the inevitable media storm. Detective Chief Inspector Morrison had been thorough. She and her team had spent hours interviewing everyone involved, collecting evidence, tracing financial transactions. The scope of Camilla's operation was even larger than initially believed. They'd discovered additional bank accounts in other countries, more intermediaries, and connections to several prominent business figures and government officials who had benefited from her influence. William sat in his office reviewing the latest report when James entered. Carrying newspapers? You're going to want to see these. Someone leaked the story. William took the papers, his heart sinking as he read the headlines. Duchess arrested in royal corruption scandal. Palace insiders sold access for millions. Royal family in crisis as corruption probe deepens. The stories were detailed, accurate in most regards, and devastating. Within hours, it would be everywhere. Television news, social media, international press. Their carefully planned strategy for managing the announcement was now worthless. Who leaked it? William asked. We don't know yet. Could have been someone in the police department. Could have been one of the people Camilla dealt with trying to protect themselves. Could even have been Camilla herself. She threatened she had insurance, information about others. Maybe this is her opening move, as if summoned by the mention of her name. William's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something told him to answer. Hello. William, it's Camilla. Her voice was strained, tired. I suppose you've seen the news. I have. Did you leak it? No. Though I suspect I know who did. One of my former associates, probably trying to minimize their own exposure by getting ahead of the story. What do you want, Camilla? To talk, face to face. There are things you need to know before this gets even worse. I'm not sure what else there is to discuss. The investigation is proceeding. You've hired lawyers. The process is in motion. Please, William. Just one conversation. I'll come to the estate. We can meet somewhere private. If after hearing what I have to say, you still want to proceed exactly as planned, I won't fight it. William hesitated. Every instinct told him this was a bad idea, but curiosity won out. Fine, this afternoon at 3. The garden house. Come alone. After hanging up, he immediately called James to inform him about the meeting. James insisted on being present, hidden nearby in case Camilla tried anything dangerous. William agreed, realizing he no longer knew what Camilla was capable of. His father appeared at the office door shortly after. He looked exhausted, years older than he had just a week ago. I heard her voice on your phone. What does she want? To meet. To talk. She says there's more I need to know. Don't trust her, William. Everything she said has been lies or half-truths, But I need to hear what she thinks is so important. Maybe she's ready to actually tell the truth. His father sat down heavily. The Palace Communications office has been calling. They want to schedule a press conference. Want me to make a statement. What am I supposed to say? That I married a criminal? That I was completely blind to what was happening under my own roof? You say that you're disappointed and hurt? That you support the investigation fully? And that actions have consequences regardless of title or position? You take the high road, Dad. That's all you can do. The high road feels very lonely right now, William understood. His father had spent years building his latter life happiness with Camilla, defending their relationship, finding peace in their partnership. Now all of it was revealed to be built on lies and corruption. It was a special kind of betrayal, one that cut deep into a person's sense of judgment and self-worth. Have you spoken to her at all since that day? William asked.
I know.
I can't bring myself to. Every time I think about calling, I remember another lie, another manipulation, and the anger comes back. I spent decades trying to do the right thing, trying to serve with integrity, and she turned our position into a marketplace. She made her choices. You made yours. Don't let her decisions reflect on you. But they do, don't they? People will say, I should have known, should have supervised her better, should have noticed something was wrong. And they'll be right. No one could have predicted this. She was careful, clever, and she had help from professionals. You're not responsible for her crimes. His father didn't look convinced, but he nodded anyway. What time is this meeting with her? 3 o'clock. I want to be there. Dad, I don't think that's a good idea. I need to be there, William. I need to hear whatever she has to say. I need to look her in the eye one more time. William considered arguing, but recognized the determination in his father's face. All right, but we let her talk. We don't engage emotionally, and James will be nearby in case things get difficult. The hours until 3 o'clock crawled by. William tried to work, but couldn't focus. Catherine stayed close, offering quiet support and making sure he ate something despite his lack of appetite. She'd been his anchor through all of this, the one person he could be completely honest with about his fears and doubts. Do you think she'll actually tell the truth today? Catherine asked as they prepared to leave for the garden house. I think she'll tell whatever version of the truth serves her purposes best. The question is whether we'll be able to distinguish fact from manipulation. They arrived at the garden house 15 minutes early. It was a small building at the edge of the estate's formal gardens, designed as a quiet retreat, but rarely used. James was already there, positioned in an adjacent greenhouse where he could observe through a carefully angled window, but remain unseen. At precisely 3 o'clock, car pulled up and Camilla emerged. She looked different, diminished somehow. Her usual elegant appearance was replaced by simple clothing and minimal makeup. Her eyes were red-rimmed, suggesting she'd been crying recently. William met her at the door. "Camilla." "Thank you for agreeing to see me." She noticed his father standing behind him. "You're here too?" "I needed to be," his father said quietly. They settled into the garden house's small sitting area, an awkward arrangement that felt more like a business meeting than a family conversation. Camilla clutched her purse tightly, her knuckles white. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days," she began, "about how I got here, about all the choices I made. And I realized I owe you both the actual truth. Not the versions I've been telling myself to make it all seem acceptable." "We're listening," William said neutrally. "It started before I even married you," she said, looking at William's father. "There were people who approached me during our engagement asking if I could provide access once I became your wife. At first, I refused. I was insulted by the very idea. But they were persistent, and they appealed to something in me that I'm ashamed of now, my insecurity about never being good enough for this family." "So you decided to prove you were valuable by selling access?" William's father asked, pain evident in his voice. "I decided to prove I could be more than just your wife, that I could have my own power, my own influence. The first time I accepted money, it was from a woman who wanted to attend a charity gala. £50,000 for an invitation that I could have gotten her for free. It felt like easy money, victimless. But it wasn't victimless," Catherine said quietly. "Every corrupt act weakens the institutions it touches. I know that now. But at the time, I convinced myself it was harmless. And then it grew. People started offering more money for more significant access. Meetings with ministers, introductions to business contacts, recommendations for honors. Each time I told myself it was the last time, but the money was addictive, and so was the sense of power." "How much did you actually make?" William asked. "Over £4 million across all accounts, all sources. The $2.4 million Richardson knew about was just the main operation. There were other arrangements, other accounts he wasn't aware of." The number hit William like a physical blow. £4 million. It was an obscene amount, representing years of systematic corruption. "Where is all that money now?" he asked. "Some I spent. Some is in offshore accounts. Some I actually did donate to legitimate charities, though I suppose that doesn't make it better since it was stolen in the first place." "And the people you paid off? The ones you called insurance?" William pressed. Camilla took a deep breath. "That was largely a bluff, meant to scare you into backing off. There are a few people in the extended family who've made questionable financial decisions, but nothing criminal. I exaggerated what I knew to try to protect myself." "So you were willing to destroy innocent family members' reputations to save yourself?" William's father said, disgust clear in his voice. "I was desperate and scared. I'm not proud of it." "You're not proud of a lot of things, it seems. Though apparently not ashamed enough to stop doing them." Camilla flinched but continued. "I wanted to meet today because I'm going to plead guilty to whatever charges they bring. My lawyers are advising against it, telling me to fight to make the prosecution prove everything. But I'm tired of fighting, tired of lying. I want this to end." William exchanged glances with his father. This was unexpected. "Why the sudden change of heart?" "Because I woke up this morning and looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. I've become everything I was accused of being when you first married me," she said, looking at William's father. "Everyone said I was self-serving, manipulative, only interested in status and money. I spent years trying to prove them wrong, and instead, I became exactly what they feared. So this is about rehabilitation? About managing your image?" William asked skeptically. "No. This is about accepting responsibility. I destroyed the one good thing in my life, my relationship with you," she said to William's father. I betrayed people who gave me chances I didn't deserve. And I corrupted an institution that's meant to be above such things. The least I can do now is own what I've done." Silence filled the garden house. William wanted to believe her, wanted to think this was genuine remorse. But she'd lied so many times, been so manipulative, that trust was impossible. "If you plead guilty, you'll go to prison," William said. "You understand that?" "Do." "My lawyers think I'll get 3 to 5 years, possibly more depending on how many charges are filed. It's what I deserve. You'll lose everything. Your title, your position, your reputation. I already lost the things that mattered. Everything else is just formality." William's father had been quiet, but now he spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. "Did you ever actually love me? Or was I just convenient, a means to an end?" Camilla's eyes filled with tears. "I loved you. I still love you. That's the worst part of all this. Everything I did, I told myself I was doing partly for us, to secure our future, to make sure I could never be dismissed or discarded. But in trying to make myself indispensable, I made myself intolerable. Could have just been yourself. I didn't need you to be anything other than honest and faithful. That would have been enough. I know that now. I wish I'd known it then." William stood and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens. "Camilla, even if everything you're saying is true, even if your remorse is genuine, it doesn't change what happened. People's lives were affected by your corruption. Government decisions may have been influenced by bribes. The integrity of this family and its institutions has been compromised. I know. I can't fix that. All I can do is face the consequences and hope that someday, somehow, some good can come from this nightmare. Maybe my case will make others think twice. Maybe reforms will happen that prevent future corruption. Maybe something positive can eventually emerge from this disaster." "That's very optimistic thinking for someone facing prison," Catherine observed. "What else do I have left but hope?" William turned back to face her. "If you're serious about pleading guilty, about cooperating fully, then do it properly. Give the investigators everything, every name, every transaction, every detail. Help them understand the full scope of what happened so they can ensure it never happens again." "I've already started. I gave Detective Morrison access to all my remaining records yesterday. Every account, every contact, everything I can remember about every arrangement I made." "And what about the people who benefited from your corruption?" William's father asked. "The ones who paid you for access and influence. They're all documented. Many of them will face their own consequences. Business people who bribed their way to contracts, individuals who bought honors they didn't earn. The investigators have all their names." William felt a grim satisfaction at that. At least there would be comprehensive accountability, not just Camilla paying the price alone. "There's one more thing," Camilla said hesitantly. "I'm writing a statement, a full confession, an apology, to be released publicly. I want people to know that I accept complete responsibility. I'm not blaming anyone else, and that the family had no knowledge of my activities. I'm hoping it will help protect all of you from the worst of the fallout." "We don't need your protection," William said coldly. "I know you don't need it, but I'm offering it anyway. It's literally the least I can do." The meeting ended shortly after. There wasn't much else to say. Camilla left the same way she'd arrived, alone and diminished. Driving away from the estate that had been her home for years, possibly for the last time. William watched her car disappear down the long driveway, feeling a complex mix of emotions he couldn't quite untangle. His father stood beside him, silent. Finally he spoke. "Do you believe her? About the remorse?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to, but she's lied so often that I can't trust my judgment anymore. She seemed broken, different than I've ever seen her. Maybe, or maybe she's just accepted that she lost and is trying to minimize the damage. Either way, the outcome is the same. She faced justice. We'll deal with the fallout, and life will eventually move forward." They walked back to the main house together. Catherine and James met them in the entrance hall, both looking concerned. "How did it go?" Catherine asked. "She's pleading guilty," William said. "Full cooperation with investigators, public confession, the whole thing." James raised his eyebrows. That's unexpected. Her lawyers must be furious. Probably. But it's her decision. At least this way, we avoid a long, drawn-out trial, with every detail being argued in public. The press is already setting up outside the main gates, James said. There are dozens of reporters, camera crews from around the world. We need to make a statement soon, before speculation gets even worse. William's father nodded. I'll do it. This afternoon? Give me an hour to prepare what I want to say. Are you sure, Dad? I can handle it. No, this is my responsibility. She was my wife. I brought her into this family. I need to be the one to address it publicly. An hour later, they assembled in the estate's formal press room. It was packed with journalists, cameras, and equipment. The noise was deafening until William's father entered and the room fell silent. He stood at the podium. Looking directly into the cameras, his face grave but composed. When he spoke, his voice was clear and firm. I want to address the serious allegations and revelations regarding my wife, the Duchess. Over the past several days, an investigation has revealed that she engaged in systematic corruption, accepting payments in exchange for access to this family and influence over various matters of state and honor. He paused. Letting the weight of the statement settle, I was completely unaware of these activities. They were conducted in secret through hidden accounts and intermediaries. When evidence was discovered by our security team and brought to my son's attention, an immediate investigation was launched in cooperation with law enforcement. I want to be absolutely clear. I am deeply disappointed and hurt by these revelations. The actions taken by the Duchess represent a profound betrayal of the trust placed in her, in me, and in this institution. They are completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. The Duchess will face the full consequences of her actions through the justice system. We will cooperate fully with all investigations and will support whatever reforms are necessary to ensure such corruption can never happen again. To the people who were affected by these corrupt acts, to those who had faith in the integrity of this family and our institutions, I offer my sincere apology. You deserved better. You deserve public servants who honor their positions rather than exploit them. I will be taking time to reflect on how this was allowed to happen and what can be done to rebuild trust. My son William has shown remarkable integrity in bringing this matter to light. Even knowing the personal and public pain it would cause, his commitment to doing what's right rather than what's convenient is the standard we should all aspire to. I will take no questions at this time. A full statement will be released once the investigation is complete. Thank you. He stepped away from the podium amid a chaos of shouted questions. William met him at the door, and together they left the room, letting the palace communications staff handle the logistics. That was perfect, Dad, William said, once they were in the private corridor. It was necessary. People need to know where we stand. Over the following days, the story dominated every news cycle. International headlines, think pieces about royal accountability, debates about whether titles should be stripped, speculation about prison sentences. It was overwhelming and invasive, but William had expected nothing less. Detective Morrison kept them updated on the investigation's progress. The evidence was overwhelming. In addition to Camilla's cooperation, they'd found dozens of witnesses willing to testify about the corrupt arrangements. Several prominent business figures had already been charged as co-conspirators. 1 week after the press conference, William received a call from Morrison. Your Highness, I wanted to inform you that formal charges will be filed tomorrow. Multiple counts of bribery, corruption, and fraud. The Duchess has confirmed she will plead guilty to all charges. What's the expected sentence? Given the severity and duration of the offenses, we're looking at 5 to 8 years. She'll serve at least half before being eligible for parole. The reality of that number hit William hard. Despite everything, despite the crimes and betrayals, Camilla had been part of their lives. Imagining her in prison for years was sobering. Thank you for keeping us informed, Detective. There's one more thing, Your Highness. We've uncovered evidence that may implicate others in peripheral corruption. Not as serious as the Duchess's activities, but questionable nonetheless. Your uncle's art transactions that the Duchess mentioned? There's actually something there. Some potentially problematic acquisitions that may have involved misuse of position. William closed his eyes. So it wasn't all bluff. Camilla had actually known about other corruption. What happens now? We'll investigate those matters separately. I wanted to give you advance warning so you can prepare. It may be that others in your family will face scrutiny. After the call ended, William sat alone in his office, feeling the weight of responsibility. He'd opened this door, insisted on full accountability. Now he had to accept that it might lead to places he didn't want to go. Catherine found him there an hour later. "Morrison called you too? About my uncle?" "Yes." "What are you going to do?" "What I have to do? If he's done something wrong, it needs to be addressed. We can't apply different standards based on who we're investigating. That's going to be hard on your father. First Camilla, now potentially his own brother." "I know. But the alternative is to look the other way, to decide that some corruption is acceptable if it's committed by the right people, and I can't do that." Catherine sat beside him and took his hand. "This is why you'll be a good king someday. Because you understand that principles matter more than comfort. Right now, I'd settle for less principle and more comfort." She smiled sadly. "Unfortunately, that's not really an option." The next day, charges were formally filed against Camilla. The news coverage was extensive, with legal experts analyzing every aspect of the case. Public opinion was divided. Some praised the family for holding one of their own accountable. Others criticized them for not supervising Camilla better, for allowing the corruption to happen in the first place. William tried to stay focused on his regular duties, but it was difficult. Everything felt tainted now, every official function shadowed by the scandal. He noticed people treating him differently, either overly sympathetic or slightly distant, as if corruption might be contagious. His children asked questions he struggled to answer. How do you explain to young kids that someone they knew, someone who'd been at family dinners and celebrations, had done terrible things? He tried to be honest without being overwhelming, to teach them about accountability while not destroying their trust in people. 2 weeks later, Camilla's sentencing hearing took place. William attended, feeling it was important to be present. His father chose not to go, saying he couldn't face it. The courtroom was packed with press and observers, all eager to witness the fall of a duchess. Camilla stood before the judge in simple clothing, no jewelry or royal insignia. She looked small, vulnerable, nothing like the confident woman who'd held court at official events. When asked if she had anything to say, she spoke clearly. "I accept full responsibility for my actions. I betrayed the trust of the institution I was privileged to be part of. I betrayed my family, and I betrayed the public. There is no excuse for what I did. I let greed and insecurity corrupt my judgment, and I hurt many people in the process. I'm deeply sorry, and I accept whatever punishment this court deems appropriate." The judge sentenced her to 7 years in prison. The courtroom erupted in murmurs and camera clicks. William sat still, watching Camilla's face as the sentence was delivered. She didn't react, just nodded slightly, as if she'd expected it. As she was led away, she looked back once, her eyes finding William in the crowd. He couldn't read her expression. Regret? Resignation? Sadness? Perhaps all three? Then she was gone, disappeared into the system that would control her life for the next several years. Outside the courthouse, William made a brief statement to the waiting press. "Justice has been served today. My family respects the court's decision and hopes that this case serves as a clear message that corruption will not be tolerated, regardless of position or title. We will continue to cooperate with ongoing investigations and remain committed to transparency and accountability." The questions came rapid fire, but he ignored them, getting into his car and leaving. Catherine was waiting at home, along with his father. They sat together in the private sitting room, processing what had happened. 7 years, his father said quietly. "That's a long time. It's what she earned through her actions," William replied, though his voice was gentler than his words. "I know. It's just difficult to reconcile the woman I loved with the criminal who was sentenced today. They feel like two different people." "Maybe they were," Catherine suggested. "Maybe the corruption changed her into someone she wasn't originally. Or maybe I never really knew her at all," William's father said. "Maybe I saw what I wanted to see and missed all the warning signs." "Dad, you can't torture yourself with what-ifs. You acted in good faith. She's the one who chose to lie and deceive, I suppose. It's just hard not to wonder what I could have done differently. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each processing their own thoughts and emotions. Finally, William spoke. Morrison mentioned the investigation into Uncle Charles's art dealings. It's moving forward. His father sighed. I was afraid of that. Have you spoken with him? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. He's going to be furious. He'll say, we're conducting a witch hunt, destroying the family from within. Maybe. But if he's done something wrong, it needs to be addressed. We can't have different rules for different family members. Agree. It's just exhausting, William. This whole thing has been exhausting. I know, Dad, but we're doing the right thing. History will judge us well for having the courage to clean house, even when it was painful. History can be remarkably cold comfort when you're living through the pain. Over the following weeks, the media attention gradually decreased. The story was still covered, but it was no longer the lead item on every news broadcast. Life slowly returned to something resembling normal, though the estate felt different, quieter, as if it was still recovering from trauma. The investigation into Uncle Charles concluded with surprising results. While there were indeed some questionable acquisitions, most could be explained as poor judgment rather than criminal intent. He received an official reprimand and was asked to step back from certain official duties, but faced no criminal charges. He was, as predicted, furious about the investigation, but William stood firm. Accountability had to be consistent. 3 months after the sentencing, William received a letter from Camilla. It had been screened by prison officials and his security team before being delivered to him. He opened it with curiosity and trepidation. His children were older now, old enough to understand more about what had happened. He used the situation as a teaching moment, explaining how even people in positions of power and privilege must follow rules, must be held accountable for their actions. They asked good questions, thoughtful questions, that showed they were absorbing the lessons. Did you love Camilla? His daughter asked one day. I cared about her as part of our family, William answered carefully. But I loved the idea of integrity more. Sometimes we have to make hard choices between people we care about and principles we believe in. Was it hard to turn her in? Very hard. One of the hardest things I've ever done. But being a good person isn't about doing easy things. It's about doing right things, even when they're difficult. His daughter nodded solemnly. I think I understand. William hoped she did. Hoped all his children would grow up understanding that privilege came with responsibility. That power required oversight, and that no one, regardless of title or position, was above accountability. 5 years after the scandal, Camilla became eligible for parole. The hearing was covered by the press, though with less intensity than the original trial. William didn't attend, feeling his presence might prejudice the proceedings one way or another. His father also chose to stay away, still not ready for direct contact. The parole was granted. Camilla would be released with conditions required to report regularly, forbidden from accepting any position of public trust, and prohibited from receiving income from any activities related to her former position. She would live quietly, anonymously, no longer part of the world she'd once inhabited. William learned of her release through official channels. Part of him felt relief that she'd served her time and could begin rebuilding a life, however limited. Another part felt the old anger at what she'd done, how she'd betrayed everyone who trusted her. But mostly, he just felt a kind of resigned sadness that so much damage had been done for such empty reasons. She never contacted him again after that first letter. Perhaps she understood that some bridges once burned could never be rebuilt. Or perhaps she was simply focused on surviving her new reality, far from the privilege and power she'd once known. Life moved forward, as it always does. New challenges arose, new responsibilities demanded attention. The scandal became history, cautionary tale told to new family members and discussed in textbooks about institutional accountability. The reforms remained in place, strengthened over time, ensuring that what happened with Camilla could never happen again, at least not as easily or extensively. William eventually succeeded his father, taking on the full weight of leadership. He governed with the lessons learned from that terrible year always in mind. When faced with difficult choices, he remembered standing in his office with evidence of corruption before him, knowing that what he did next would define not just his response to one crisis, but his entire approach to leadership. He chose integrity then. He chose it every day after. And in doing so, he transformed a scandal into a legacy, pain into purpose, betrayal into a renewed commitment to honor. Years later, when asked in an interview about the most difficult decision he'd ever made, William didn't hesitate. Confronting corruption within my own family, knowing it would cause pain to people I loved, but understanding that accountability mattered more than comfort. It taught me that leadership isn't about making popular choices or easy choices. It's about making right choices, then having the courage to see them through, regardless of cost. The interviewer asked if he had any regrets. William thought about his father's pain, about family relationships fractured, about the public embarrassment and personal cost. Then he thought about the reforms implemented, the renewed commitment to integrity, the lesson taught to future generations. No, he said finally, no regrets. Only a deep certainty that when we're faced with wrong actions, our response defines us more than the wrong itself. We chose accountability over convenience, and I believe history will judge that choice well. As he spoke those words, William thought about a scared, an insecure woman who'd made terrible choices because she couldn't see her own worth beyond money and power. He thought about a father who'd loved deeply and been betrayed. He thought about a family that had survived crisis by refusing to compromise its principles. And he thought about a young security guard who'd found evidence in a car and brought it forward because it was the right thing to do, not knowing how that single act would change everything. Sometimes the most important moments in history begin with the smallest choices. A choice to look inside a locked box. A choice to report what you find. A choice to investigate rather than ignore. A choice to demand truth rather than accept comfortable lies. Each choice built on the last, creating a cascade of consequences that transformed not just individuals, but an entire institution. William had learned that integrity was not a single decision, but a series of choices, made repeatedly, often in the face of pressure to compromise. He'd learned that true leadership meant being willing to endure pain for principle, to sacrifice comfort for correctness, to choose difficulty over ease. These were hard lessons earned through hard experience. But they were the lessons that mattered most, the ones that would guide him through every challenge ahead. And so, when he lay down each night, despite all the complexity and pain the scandal had brought, William slept soundly, because he knew with absolute certainty that when it mattered most, he'd done the right thing. And that knowledge was worth more than any amount of comfort or convenience ever could be.